Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. We have a lot to talk about. We got to break down USC's 42-28 loss to Stanford in the Coliseum. USC was favored by 17 points coming into the game and leaves with a loss. So we'll break it down and share our thoughts, and also talk about what we heard from head coach Clay Helton in his Sunday night press conference. And we'll talk about the season outlook. Where does USC go from here now that they sit 1-1 on the season? As always, you can tweet at us, hashtag TunnelVision. I'll put your tweet up on the screen. You can also call us, 512-4-TUNNEL. Our intern, Micah, is standing by. Just a disclaimer, we know you guys are frustrated. We're not going to take rant calls. We just want real questions for us today. You can always leave your rant voicemails to the podcast line. That's kind of the avenue you should take. But questions today.
Yeah, I did a lot of those last night, the emergency one. You guys left me 43 voicemails last night.
Yeah. So basically, send Ryan more voicemails.
Yeah, we don't need more of those. Go listen to the Emergency Peristyle podcast. Go check that out. So I played 20 voicemails from you guys on there. All of them, one UCLA fan that was happy with the head coaching situation at USC, but everyone else was upset. So you can listen to all of those. Hopefully you guys like it.
Yeah, but wherever you're watching, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook Live, put your comments, questions, concerns. We'll do our best to answer them for you guys. We love hearing from you guys, so be sure to do that. Guys, like I said, this is an interesting one. Ryan, you now infamously said that Stanford was, quote-unquote, not good. You can use the term that you used. Do you still stand by that at that point?
Yeah.
You expect this to be a big USC win, and here we are talking about a loss.
I know. I did expect. I picked USC to cover the spread. Everyone except Keely picked USC to cover the spread. That didn't happen. And so, yes, what did I say? I said Stanford was butt. So I do the podcast of champions. Both David Woods and I feel like Stanford is on the downward, on the decline. And, talking to RJ Abadia, who does a great job with us, he used to publish The Bootleg, which is the big Stanford website. He knows the Stanford program very, very well. You could see when we were in the tunnel last night, he knew people, from the Stanford side. And, I asked him point blank while you were sitting there, Keely, is Stanford good? And he's like, no, this is not a good Stanford team. They were blown out by Kansas State. Kansas State went out and played Southern Illinois yesterday and won by 8. So it's not like that Kansas State is this world beater type of team. Stanford had USC's number yesterday for sure. I think it's more concerning because I don't feel like Stanford's going to be a contender in the North. I don't think that they're a powerhouse. It's good that you had Tanner McKee come in there and just play the whole game instead of swapping out with Jack West. But at the end of the day, when you look at Stanford at the end of the season, I just don't think they're going to be very good. And USC got blown out. They were a 17-point favorite and were down by 29 in the fourth quarter. That's even a great team. You don't want to see something like that. So, yes, I don't think Stanford is a very good team. It's very concerning to see how poorly USC played in all phases, where special teams were below average in week 1. I'm going to give Sean Snyder the benefit of the doubt. They were below average again yesterday, in my opinion. The defense played great. I gave them credit for a shutout in week 1 against, I think, is a pretty good San Jose State team. They came out and played terrible yesterday, and USC just couldn't get out of their own way. And I asked Clay Helton about this on the conference call today we had with him just a little bit ago. Listening to the radio broadcast, Jordan Moore, I think he described it well. If you watch Stanford play, there was easy plays. It looked like things were high percentage. And when you watch USC play, it looked like everything was a struggle, like just trying to complete a 5-yard pass. Again, 2 weeks in a row, you saw USC complete 2 passes in a series and still go 3 and out. And, for this offense, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It was Gary Bryant, I think, caught 2 passes on 1 series, and it still wasn't enough for a first down. They did that to Drake London in week 1. Just everything seemed like it's a struggle to gain some yardage. You're not seeing the wide open receiver. And I don't want to hear this being an air raid because it's not. It doesn't look like an air raid to me at all. you're not getting people schemed open. And that's a huge problem. You have to make things easier, and USC isn't. And Stanford, I think, took advantage of that. They had a great game plan. I still don't think it's a very good Stanford team, but they knew what USC was doing, and they just beat them to the punch in every aspect, all three phases of the game.
Mm-hmm. I talked to Graham Harrell after the game, and he said that Stanford didn't show them any surprises. This is what they expected from the Stanford team. How does that happen, Ryan, in year 3 of this offense? I mean, it seems like you should have that pretty much figured out. We kept hearing that the same phrase we've heard in the Clay Helton era is we just need to execute. We need to execute better.
Yeah.
Why is that the continuous answer we hear?
I think if you remember like the gumbo offense, and when things were bad in 2018 and 19 and things were just terrible, you're like, oh, got to execute. I think at that point you have to, as a coaching staff, you guys are the ones that are getting paid money to coach these student athletes. It's not like, well, I told them to do this and they didn't do it. They didn't execute. Like, basically, I told them what to do and they didn't do it. Like, they were supposed to do this and they didn't. At some point, you have to say, well, you're probably telling them the wrong thing. You need to be able to put your 19, 20-year-old kid that's under your watch into a great position to have some sort of success. And that's not what the coaching staff has been doing. And what I liked about bringing in Graham Harrell was they needed a system. They needed some kind of guru that knows this offense. When you saw like Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian, they were kind of taking pieces of other things. And, Clay Helton, it's just no one came in as like, I'm a guru of whatever offense it is. I don't care if it's a wing tee, the air raid, the run and shoot, whatever it is, be a guru of that. And I felt like Graham Harrell was going to be an air raid guru, but then you comes in and you're like, well, it's not really air raid. But we saw, Keaton Slovis, 2 years ago, throwing for 400 yards a game. They used their wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyler Vaughns and Michael Pittman and whoever. You were using all these guys. Now it looks like they're trying to do something different. Like, well, we're not going to do that. And I don't feel like he's a guru of that. It's like now it looks like an offense that's just clunky again. It looks grab baggy again. It looks just like they're trying to, well, we need to do a little bit of this and we need to do a little bit of that. That's not what you're going to do if you're going to be successful. So I feel like they've regressed offensively, schematically. I don't know what the offense is. We thought it was going to be an air raid, which is, I know USC fans didn't want to see that, but at least you have an identity. This is now an identity-less offense, and I just don't know the direction they're trying to go with it. It's not making sense. It's clunky, and it's not working.
Yeah, Shotgun, you were on the sideline for the game. What was your observations of this offense?
I mean, I said it last time on this analysis, this is an execution-based offense, and they can't execute. That tells you that the offense can't do what they're supposed to do. There's, rewatching the game, and, I've only made it through part of the first half, but you're seeing, Keaton Slovis moving the running back. You're seeing, they get a delay of game penalty. During that play, Drake London is yelling across the formation because Michael Trigg's not lined up correctly. These are the things. If you're going to be an execution-based offense, you got to at least execute before the snap. And they're not even doing that. So, there's too many times where there's, the veterans on the team are moving guys around. The young guys just haven't picked up all the things in the offense. If it's supposed to be so simple, why are they having so many issues before the snap? Why are you having issues with that? And then it felt like at times that Stanford knew what was coming, whether there was something that they picked up on film where someone is giving away a play, or if they knew USC's calls. I don't know what exactly it was, but there were times when it seemed like they were expecting plays. So you're not getting if the playbook is as simple as Graham Harrell has said in the past, and then what do you have to do different? You have to bring in more plays. Well, can you do that with how they're struggling to get the simple plays down? So I think there's some issues there. I don't know why that stuff wasn't, and maybe it's just there's been so many new faces this fall that you're still trying to figure out things. I know I talked to Gary Bryant after the game, and he told me that they're still trying to get on the same page with Keaton Slovis, and you saw that with some of those balls off the hands, off the fingertips. I don't know if it's just the changing pieces, and maybe that'll progressively get better, but it's attention to detail. It's small things, and that's the thing you'd say about this entire program. Attention to detail is not there. There's just small things you go, well, if they fix this, this part would be better. If they fix this, but there's a lot of those things that need to be fixed.
Yeah. The feeling I get is it's sort of like, okay, USC has athletes, but as it's schematically, opponents will come into the game going, okay, we're not really sure what they're going to do. They feel like it's like you're playing a basketball pickup game, and this guy's a pretty big athlete, and he's got like one post move. You're like, I know what he's going to do. He might get me though, like he's a big, strong athlete. He might get around me, but I'm not worried that he's going to fake it and go the other way. And I feel like that's where USC is. Like, do USC's athletes go out and make the play or not? Because it's not like, oh, they're going to do something we didn't expect, and this guy's wide open. So it just feels like you know what they're going to do, but their athletes are better than yours, so they still might get you, but they might not, if that makes sense.
Well, in that sense, USC has failed to score a touchdown in the third quarter. That's something that's plagued the team in past seasons as well. What does that say about the adjustments their opponents make versus what USC's offense, their adjustments they make?
I think Adam Grossbart pointed that out. 7 of the last 8 games, not a single touchdown in the third quarter. And it was funny, he asked Clay Helton that in the press conference after the game, and I don't think Clay Helton was aware of that, but he was talking about the adjustments that Graham Harrell makes, and that he makes them after every drive, not just at halftime. And I mean, it didn't jive with what the reality is. Like, well, whatever you're doing at halftime doesn't appear to be working, because the next 15 minutes of game time, you don't score a touchdown. So I don't know. That didn't make any sense to me.
Is that surprising to you? There's a lot of things that Clay Helton has said, especially after losses, that just don't jive with what you're seeing on the field. You asked him a question today and never really got a response. Like, what did the coaches need to do better? He said, well, they had a good game plan. They felt they had an effective game plan coming in. And they said that they thought that they had their best week of practice coming in. Chris Steele said a little bit different after the game. So, what he's saying and what we're seeing aren't aligning. And, that's been a common theme, especially after losses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the other side of the ball, the defense was something we felt confident about coming out of fall camp, looking at how they played against San Jose State. What happened on Saturday?
That's a good question. I don't need to back off my Stanford statements. I'll wait a few weeks and see. I think you're going to see like, wow, they really aren't that good. I feel like pretty confident in that. I was really confident in the defense, and I don't know. I mean, this is one of those things. Is this an anomaly? Stanford came out and punched USC in the mouth, and the secondary that played extremely well in the opener against San Jose State. I mean, there was 5 penalties on the secondary alone, and they're just blown coverage. I mean, there was a lot of problems there, and then the pass rush that we talked about in week 1, where you felt like I asked Clay Helton about this, and he said that they actually did get pressure on Nick Starkel, and so even though you didn't get a sack, they were affecting his accuracy. And I took him, that made sense to me, but I don't think that was the case.
That was true.
Yeah.
That was true.
But for McKee, like, it wasn't the case. Like, he had a lot more time, and the pressure, to get no sacks 2 weeks in a row on a defense that does come after you and does try to generate negative plays, that's concerning to me.
They were able to get a couple of big hits on Tanner McKee early. Raymond Scott had that one where he came through the blind side, gets him in the ribs. But Stanford made quick adjustments, and then it stopped. There was no more pressure, even though USC was loading the box against the run, but also to try to bring some pressure on McKee and force him to make some of those early decisions. And that's what they did really well against Starkel. Starkel got rid of the ball really quickly. McKee had a lot of time to sit back there.
Yeah.
Outside of those first couple drives in the first quarter, USC's defense was good outside of one play. Now that was an 87-yard run.
Yeah.
And that
from the press box, I just saw it sort of open up. Like, there was the left side of the line.
So someone missed a gap there. Either Raylan Goforth or Nick Figueroa. Both of them were basically in the same spot, and that left open a hole. And Kalen Bullock didn't take a good angle on it, and he has to do a better job. And that's the danger of playing a true freshman.
Yeah.
He takes a bad angle. He's the last man. He's the last defense. He has to take a better angle to stop that. At least slow the guy down. Then maybe Chase Williams can get over on the other side, but. Pete had got to the edge and was gone. And there was 87 yards to the house. And I listened to David Shaw's press conference after the game while we were waiting on some of the USC players to come out. And he said it was kind of like a bucket in basketball, a team that's really struggling to find some points. They get one basket to go in. You see the lid come off the basket is the analogy he used. And then he said, at first he said, it's kind of like a layup. We got a layup. And then suddenly he's like, well, that was more like a 3-pointer. That was a little bit farther. But then that allowed them to relax because they got the lead.
Yeah.
And so they have a lot of young players or inexperienced players. Those guys got to relax a little bit and felt like they could go out and dominate. And that's what they did. They went out and dominated USC on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm. I thought we were confident about USC's cornerbacks. Is this just a bad game? What did you see from Dante Williams' group?
Yeah, I think there's some concerns there. I know they didn't like all of the calls that were out there, but it's the Pac-12, and you're going to get some calls and stuff like that. It's going to happen. I know Chris Steele wasn't super happy. He said so much in the interview you guys did with them. But yeah, I think there's some concern. But to me, Keely, this was more of a. There's sometimes things go wrong. There's sometimes you're in these meetings where there's more than we see in practice. There's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of film watching, and sometimes you just catch something. It's like something you can exploit on the other team, and it just seemed like Stanford did a way better job and all of that pre-planning to figure out, okay, maybe we don't have as good of athletes here. They don't have great skill position guys, and they still took advantage of USC's better defenders. But they had a really good game plan. It just seemed like they outfoxed. And that's why I asked, Clay Helton about this, where like, hey, you were a 17-point favorite. You were down by 29. What could you, as a coaching staff, have done better? And didn't really get an answer. Just kind of like Shotgun said, he said, like, well, we had a good game plan. Like, I don't think you could have, because it looks like Stanford had a good game plan, and their game plan trumped your game plan.
I mean, if you had a good game plan, that means you didn't make any adjustments. And then there was something else he said that it made it sound like that they're kind of putting on the effort of the players, and Graham Harrell put it on the effort of the players. Yeah. So does that mean
that? Yeah, I hate that.
I mean, that's fine if you want to say that, but then you have to take the responsibility. That's your job, is to motivate the players so that they give the effort that you're looking for. So it's on the coaches. It always ends up on the coaches one way or the other. But, you can't be pushing the blame somewhere else when, you need to be – it's just interesting – the responses from Graham Harrell, the responses from Clay Helton after the game, when compared to some other teams that lost yesterday. Now, you can look at it at Ryan Day at Ohio State, took responsibility for it, said it was unacceptable. And say, that's a top 5 team. Okay, that's what you expect of the coaches when you're ranked that high. Okay, let's look at it from a different angle. Mike Norvell, new coach at Florida State, they lose on a bad, terrible defensive play, terrible defensive call. But he apologizes after it. Says, I apologize to the alumni, to all the Seminoles out there, blah, 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 blah. 2 different tracks of taking responsibility. And it just doesn't feel like this coaching staff is taking the responsibility that it seems like they should.
Yeah.
Saying, the players didn't give enough effort, and saying, we thought it was an effective game plan. We thought we had a great week of practice, is what Clay Helton said. And
you could have. I mean, I heard that from people too, but doesn't always translate to a great game.
Didn't have a great Saturday of a game.
No, and I think to your point, it's you can say we really, we studied a lot. We felt like we had a great game plan for this one going in. Like, felt like we did, but we didn't. Like, Stanford did this, they did that, whatever it is. Like, yeah, we felt like we prepared well for this and just didn't put our players in a great position. Like, something. You have to give them something, and it just, Clay Helton's not going to do that. He's going to be a very positive, if you ask him what you did wrong, he's going to say, well, we did this right. And it's just not, I know, it's frustrating for us, and people get mad at us, or like, we ask questions, like, I can't force him to say, it's not a trial, it's like, I can only ask him, like, hey, what can you do better? And he's going to say, oh, we did this good. I mean, we can't do much more than that. So we try, probably we could do a much better job too, but, we're doing our best trying to do that. But it's just, you're not getting those kind of answers. And just the feeling I got yesterday, I mean, we've seen this before, right? We've seen it 2018 and 20, like, just the apathy is through the roof. People are over it. I mean, I don't know.
The end of the third quarter tells you everything you need to know about where the fan base is.
The amount of boos we heard
It's
yesterday?
as bad as I've seen. It's been bad before.
It's kind of amazing how many boos there were in the fourth quarter and the chance that there were because of how many fans had left.
Yeah.
It was spring game-esque as far as the attendance, and I'm not talking about a Nebraska spring game. I'm talking about a USC, 10,000 people maybe left in the stadium, if that. Give credit to the student section for staying.
They were.
Granted, some of those chants were coming, originating from the student section. But, the fans spoke with their actions yesterday at the end of the third quarter. They go down, and I don't know if it was 38 or 42-13 at that point. I don't remember exactly when they went up there. I think it was 35-13, and they were like, this is it. They're not coming back. Even though USC had all those comebacks last year, there was no buy-in from the fans there because they felt like they've seen the same thing over and over, and they have. They've seen the same thing, and yesterday was very reminiscent of other losses that they've had in the past, but as a 17-point favorite,
yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, there's a cumulative effect, and this loss on its own is really bad, because you were a big favorite and you were down 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So just on its own, but it's just piled on and piled on. And you had like the pandemic year in the middle, which was sort of like very weird, but then, the horrible loss that gives you the bad taste in your mouth. And the schedule was set up so easy. Fans were upset. They're like, man, USC can't lose these next few games. They're going to be like 4-5-0, a top 10 team. And then what's going to happen? Well, that, obviously that is out the window. But you feel like the fans are like, they've just seen this, over and over and over again. I feel, Bill Plaschke, wrote a column. He's like, people have written this column a million times, calling for Clay Helton to be fired and everything. And I don't know, just the sense I got, Keely, shotgun, from feeling from the fans, it just seemed like, it's done. Like they can't take it anymore. Like they're going to walk away. And I feel like that's what the urgency is. If you're in the administration, that if you wait to make a move and fire Clay Helton to the end of the season versus the bye week or sooner, I feel like that for real, like fans are dropping off. Like it just seemed, the feeling I'm getting is like they are over this.
Well, what's interesting too is yesterday was a big recruiting day as well. A lot of recruits were visiting, and with the early signing period, does that force your hand a little bit as well, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, so the whole force your hand, and I'm sure we probably don't have any questions about like with Clay Helton to be fired and stuff. That I'm sure that doesn't come up.
Sarcasm, Ryan.
Yes. No. So the sense of urgency to me is greater, and I feel like football-wise, everyone was right when you said there's no way your head coach should take this team that was the most talented in the Pac-12 and go 5-7. There's no way this team should have won one Pac-12 championship game in the last 12 years. Like, that is ridiculous. They have been consistently the most talented team. You won one conference title in a dozen years. There's a lot of football reasons. And then we started to hear the economic reasons and the reasons from the poor decisions from previous leadership in the administration of why that couldn't happen. I think most of that has been mitigated. And now there's really no excuses left. You fixed, and I give Mike Bone, Brandon Sauce, I know people are unhappy with it. I give them credit because they did come in and fix a lot of stuff. There was a lot of things that were broke when they came in because of poor administration from before. They fixed a lot of things, but you fixed it all. You fixed everything around the main guy. You fixed everything around Clay Helton and you gave him every possible reason to succeed. There is no reason from the resources you provided that a 17-point favorite should be down by 29 in the fourth quarter. Like, that should not have happened. There's only one place you can look at that point, and that's to the head man, because you fix everything around, but you still have one guy that's driving this bus. And, if he's not doing his job, if there's whatever it is, the culture around him, it's going to come from the head coach. And as much resources you can provide, and USC's done that, you still, at this point, have to make a change at the head coach. I think that's the only thing you could do. So, to me, I feel like the administration is hearing this more. They've heard it for the last couple of years. I think they're hearing it loud and clear now because there's really nothing else they can do but replace the head coach.
Well, what's interesting about the positioning of this game and the way it was lost is that it's early in the season, and if you look at Mike Bone and Brandon Sosnan, when they came in, they didn't have a regular season loss in 2020. There wasn't really something you could point to and say, hey, this is an indictment on Clay Helton. You need to fire him now. He could get away with the COVID season, having a team that continues to fight in each game, and then you lose to Oregon in the championship game. But this is the first, I would say, Clay Helton loss, if you will,
yes,
where it's an inexcusable loss. It's early in the season, and it just demoralizes the fan base. And I think this is the first time that I think the new administration has to deal with something like this that we have seen in the Clay Helton era for years.
Well, they had the Holiday Bowl, right? So they got
True,
to see that.
true.
So that was sort of like a similar, and they're like, whoa. But they just got there, I think
Yeah.
that was Brandon Sosna's like first
game.
everything.
Yeah.
First, he just got to USC, and that's. But now they've like, oh, we're going to fix this. We'll show you. Like, you feel like, and I give them credit because they've done some really good things, and just feel like they're like, yeah, man, we've done some good work, and it's tough for them because then the team falls flat on their face anyway, and you're like, it wasn't about resources. It's about you have someone that, as nice of a guy he is, and it's been a joy to cover. I mean, he's been very gracious with his time. Like him, I could be friends with him for the rest of my life, but I don't think he's qualified to be the USC head coach. I didn't think it when he was hired, and it's 7 years later, and I still don't think that. And this is another inexcusable loss in a long list of inexcusable losses. So, at this point, I don't think there's anything the administration can do that doesn't include here's the press release. we are moving on and finding a new head coach.
I mean, there's nothing that gives you confidence that things will drastically turn around. I mean, Clay Helton will point to, was it 2016, the Rose Bowl year where they were 1-3, they turned things around, but there's no magic fix. There's no, when you put in Jackson Dart, does that change everything for you? No, I don't think it does. I think that there's too many small issues that are, indicative of the program as a whole rather than one change at a position is going to make a drastic change. I just don't feel like there is anything there. And it's unfortunate that it's the same issues over and over again. So it's not like there's something brand new that's come up and, if they fix this one thing that just randomly has popped up, then, they should be better. It's the same things over and over. So I don't know what would give anyone confidence that they will drastically change things and suddenly start playing like a championship caliber program.
And the problem, if you look at 2016, I mean, you played Alabama, right? You played a good Utah team. The schedule was harder. Then it got significantly easier, and they just kind of grazed. The Washington game was legit, but outside of that, everything was pretty easy. I think Notre Dame was like 4-8 that season or something. There weren't as many roadblocks. Stanford shouldn't have been a roadblock. Like, this was not like, once we played Georgia and that lost, but now we're going to bounce back. Like, Stanford's like your gimme win. Like, you should have won the game. So I don't see, UCLA looks tough. Utah just lost, but they look tougher than what we've seen before.
BYU.
Yeah, BYU, like, they get the win over that. I mean, yeah, this is not like, I think it's different from that year. Like you said, there's no magic pill. There's no Sam Darnold you're going to put in and fix everything. Plus, it's not like the front-loaded schedule. Like, it's more of a back-loaded schedule. And the concerning thing for me, there's a lot of concerning things, but you just feel like, I feel like they could kind of sleepwalk through the beginning of the schedule and get a bunch of wins. And you couldn't. And so, like, to me, there's something not right. I mean, the fans feel it. You can't not, if you're a player on the team, if you're a coach on the team, you can't not feel that energy. And we saw this 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, 2018. They had to avoid any reference to the head coach of the football team. When you bring him out of the tunnel at halftime and people are booing, they're probably not going to do that halftime interview anymore because it's just an invitation for the fans to express their displeasure. When they tweet something and everyone has these negative thoughts, like, they were basically like, okay, well, we can't roll Clay Helton out there. If you can't roll your head coach out there in front of the fan base, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it that much more difficult if you're a player. The person you're listening to and trying to believe in, if they're getting booed by 50 to 80,000 people, how do you go and be like, I trust that guy?
Yeah.
When there's, we'll say half the people in the stadium. Well, there's 40,000 people that are saying this is not the guy. How do you then go believe yourself that the person is the one you should be listening to? It makes it that much more difficult. And I think I talked to a couple players. And some of the younger guys are like, I've never been booed like that.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like it's kind of, the analogy is literal, but also a little bit metaphorical, is that Clay Helton's kind of standing on the center logo. The players are on the sideline. The fans are behind yelling. And so the players are kind of caught in the middle in the situation. And, they react different ways. One player late in the game was yelling back at the student section, telling them basically to shut up while they were chanting "Fire Helton." So, they're kind of put in a rough place, and you feel bad for the players.
Yeah, for sure.
That they are not, getting the opportunity to excel the way that previous student athletes at USC have been able to.
Yeah, and I think the booing is directed towards Clay Helton, but in a stadium like that, you can't differentiate, they're booing my head coach versus me, and can you really separate those two?
Honestly, I just think they're booing Keely every time.
I would say.
Those highlights aren't good enough, Keely.
I'm sorry. No. But Shotgun, you and I were talking about this yesterday or last night. In 2020...
I think that was technically this morning.
Sure, it's all a blur, actually, the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
But in 2020, it seemed like the team had fight. For wherever they found it, they had fight. But the body language in the fourth quarter was just bad. I mean, this is week 2. Could this get worse?
It could. Yeah, it definitely could. We haven't seen the team not be behind Clay Helton. And maybe this is, like those players I was talking about, those younger guys that have never been booed before. There's so many new faces on this team from, the last 2 years because obviously there were no fans. So this is new to them. So, being in a stadium where people are booing and chanting against your head coach, maybe that played into the body language. Maybe they bounced back from it. But I think they're on a precipice right now. And it could go one or two ways. And, maybe they rally around, say it's us against the world, and that's what you hope the team would do. And maybe, and if the coaching staff fixes some of those small details, they can start to turn things around. We'll see this week when they go to Washington State, a place where they've notoriously not played well.
Yeah.
We'll see if they play any better. They should still win, but Washington State could be dangerous, and especially with the way they just played. But just some of the things that you're seeing on the sidelines, there's some bickering back and forth, players yelling back at the student section, hearing some stories from inside the locker room, from after the game. Just a lot of things that make you say, Clay Helton had said multiple times, extremely bonded was the phrase that he used, talking about this team. They're a close-knit group. I don't know that we're seeing the same things.
I think the adage is actions speak louder than words. Yeah. And to me, the feeling I get, we're not in the locker room, but what we've seen, you go to practice, you see stuff going on, you talk to people, you talk to sources. It just seems like a house of cards to me that I felt, honestly, that there were problems. They did a lot of things to make it better as far as like fixing things in the program, support staff, assistant coaches, recruiting, whatever. They did a lot of those things, but it's still not stable. You still have, the tent pole that's holding everything up is still Clay Helton, and everything around it might be better. But to me, it just felt like some sort of house of cards, and I felt like they could keep it together through the easier parts of the schedule. And the fact that it collapsed against Stanford doesn't give me any confidence that, this is going to be a roller coaster ride for the rest of the season. You remember in 2018 where things just went awry. Even though USC was talented, they were just losing games they shouldn't lose. And you're just like, wow, you feel like that's a similar kind of thing. To me, I don't think there's any way that Clay Helton's the head coach in 2022. It's just, we've said, I've been wrong about this many times, so don't listen to anything I say. It's hard outside of running the table, literally winning every game. I think the administration is justified in making a move, and I feel like that's fair. But it's what we saw Saturday, what we saw last night. There's no way that team can run the table. It's just, I know that's what Clay Helton was saying, and he's talking about, let's see what's going on at the end of the season. To me, we saw that house of cards being really shaky and collapse at times. The way that what we saw out there just wasn't like a buttoned up team that everyone was on the same page, everyone was together, and they were bonded. That did not look like a bonded team to me.
You kind of just answered what I was going to ask, Ryan, but just to fully play devil's advocate here, one could say, hey, this is a really bad game for USC. It was a North team, so they still, quote unquote, control their destiny in the South. They could end up in the Pac-12 championship. What's stopping you from believing that, Ryan?
Just from what we saw. And out in college football in general, Alabama looks amazeballs and everyone else looks like, and maybe Stanford comes and beats some teams. And I think Stanford's going to lose some bad games the rest of the way too. But it's just, USC's not that good where they could just run the table. And if talent-wise, they're there. But, Notre Dame's look shaky.
Talent-wise, they're not necessarily there, though. Because there's some certain positions where, because they haven't recruited well, and because of a couple injuries, they're extremely thin, and they have to do other things with the defense in particular because they don't have those defensive tackles that can just be a two-gap guy and take up multiple blockers. They don't have those body types. So they do have a ton of talent, but they've slid in that. They can't
in certain aspects. But most of the teams on their schedule, they would switch rosters with USC.
Sure.
That's the thing, where it's like USC, they have some issues like the defensive tackle, whatever, but Stanford doesn't have as good of a roster as USC, and they beat the crap out of them. So
Bryson Tremaine worked their cornerbacks. He didn't have too many stats there. He also, I think, had the tip on the punt block as well. And I believe he's a former walk-on.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that's from Los Angeles, and I was looking up his profile, and I was like, he went where? I don't remember. I don't even remember the name from him from 4 years ago. He's a senior, and I think he had something like 15 catches or 20 catches coming into the season.
Wow. Yeah.
So, he's not the five-star type of player that you would face if you face an Oregon or you face a Clemson or an Alabama on the outside. That's not him.
Yeah.
And yet he worked USC's cornerbacks in that game. So they're getting beat by former walk-ons.
Yeah, and to Keely, your point is, I feel like USC losing badly to a not quite as talented team or not as talented team, but a well-coached team. There's going to be other better talent, more talented teams on the schedule that have just as good coaching or better, and that's why it's going to be tough for USC to run the tail. I thought they could go 10-2 for sure. They should have. Like I felt this was a 10-win team for sure. Like the way the schedule set up. I mean, and the people were saying, "Oh, they're going to be 6-6 or 7-5." Like, there's no way. I think they're more right now than we'll see. USC can turn around. They're still very talented. But like a 9-3 season after this, like that's not going to be good enough. You have to win the conference and you have to win the rest of your game. You can't back into what we saw on Saturday. I think it changes everything.
I mean, is there an instance, Ryan, that you can remember, or Shotgun, because I know you have a crazy memory, where we came into a game or we looked at a game and said they were against an opponent that coached very well, but USC came out on top? When I feel like we usually are saying they were out-coached, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a time when that wasn't the case?
I mean, if you look at like Utah, Matt Fink coming in, you look at Kyle Whittingham, you think he's a really good coach, but they were super stubborn in that.
Yeah.
Usually it's the well-coached. If you're going to call Stanford a well-coached team, 2 years ago when Slovis diced them up because they decided to play man all the time, that's a well-coached team then, and they beat them. So there's a couple instances there, but they're more often than not, they are fighting against the coaching as far as they're in a coaching deficit. And there's a couple games where usually it's when the other team, you're just like, why were they so stubborn with it? Against USC's weapons.
Coaches are stubborn.
That's true.
There's a couple times where USC's had really good game plan, and maybe they felt like they had a really good game plan going into this game. And I thought they played pretty well in the first quarter outside of that one play. And they had a long drive. That was like 15 plays or something.
Yeah, it was like 95-yard drive. You took a fair catch on the 5, which is.
And Clay Helton pointed out that they were facing the field position deficit the entire game. They were never, even when they did flip the field, they flipped the field and then an 87-yard run on the next play. So, their offense struggles to put together those type of drives consistently because a lot of times one thing will go wrong and it'll back up a drive. And that's what teams are trying to do. Okay, even if we're in plus position, if we can punt it and pin them inside the 10-yard line, are they going to really drive 90 yards? And if they do drive, are they going to get stuck in the red zone? That's been the case too often for the USC offense right now.
And I feel like with the running game, it comes up a lot. I mean, USC's actually run the ball. Like, if you look at statistics, it's like, it's been fine. But that doesn't really matter. It's sort of like teams are letting USC run for 5 yards of carry because they know you're not going to go follow through with it. You're not going to consistently do that. And they're going to, for you to have a 12-play drive, it's going to be everything's got to go right. And it's just because USC's been so inefficient on offense, it's not going to go right. Like, there's going to be that run that goes sideways and gets tackled for a 2-yard loss, and then you're behind the sticks, and it just doesn't work. So I feel like people are letting USC run the football a little bit more, and like, all right, but we're going to take away what we think your strength is. And if you want to try to run the ball all the way down the field, go ahead. But we don't feel you're going to do that, and they haven't.
And as Clay Helton said today on the call, he said they have to grow in the explosiveness of the offense. They're not getting explosive plays.
No,
and that's because defenses are playing farther back. They're playing off coverage, extra safety back. Let them run. They can't break those runs because they're not being able to hold those blocks at the second level. And that's something that Clay McGuire has kind of noted, and I think Graham Harrell said that yesterday as well.
He did. I actually have the quote pulled up. He said, "We always talk about how explosive plays are huge, and I think we had some looks to hit explosives. Like I said, I think that Stanford wanted to make the tackle more than we wanted to make the block a couple of times." So he basically was questioning USC's effort yesterday when I talked to him. So I thought that was an interesting development there.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the offensive line played okay. Is that good enough? I talked to Jonah Monheim, and he said, we a lot of times we got the right calls and we, got our hats on the right blocks, but we're not dominating. And I think that's the biggest thing to open up those explosive plays. And that's what he mentioned. Why he mentioned it. He said, if we want to get those explosive plays, we got to dominate guys. We got to be able to, knock a guy down and create a big hole type of thing. That hasn't been the case. And can this offense do that without it? That's what when you look at the Oklahoma State air raids or the Mike Leach air raids, is that a usually short, speedy running back you're so intent on focusing on those 4 receivers that are out there, the 4 pass catching targets, that suddenly that guy pops one in the middle, a draw or something, and it goes for 60, 70 yards, and you're just like, wait, they just ran the ball on us and they scored? But like Oklahoma State is terrific at that, having dynamic running backs that pop those really long runs, those explosive runs, and USC hasn't been able to do that.
Alrighty, we have a full caller queue, so I'm going to get to our calls.
We did like a 40-minute intro. Sorry.
I know. Sorry. Thank you for everyone who's been waiting on the call line. We appreciate you. Just a friendly reminder, please be brief and please have a question. That way we can go through as many calls as possible. Let's go to our first caller. It's Gilbert from Sherman Oaks. Hello, you are live on Tunnel Vision.
Hi, gang. I'm not going to reiterate everything that you have already talked about.
Good.
I've been an SC fan for 70 years. My daughter graduated from SC. We are longtime great SC followers and fans. She was born an SC fan. But here's what I want to get to. Number one, no matter if it was a 17-point favorite, I told my daughter, we're going to the Coliseum, and I feel a nail biter, but we're going to win. I never thought we were going to blow out Stanford. And I'll tell you why. I knew we were going to be out-coached. I know that, okay? I mean, I've watched SC teams over the years, and this Helton era, we're always out. It seems like we're always out-coached. That is so frustrating. I'm assuming Stanford has good athletes, but are they better than SC? I doubt it. I really do. The other point I wanted to make is that crowd at the beginning was so electric. I'm a veteran, but when they shut off the lights, I never felt the Coliseum so alive and so electric as it was before the game. And at the end of the game, or by the third quarter, it was totally, the air had come out of the balloon. But here's my question.
Here's
my question. You guys, you know the athletes better than we do. You're great analysts. Do you feel are we going to lose a lot of talent through the transfer portal if this coach remains coach of this program? And I'll let you guys answer.
Thanks, Gilbert.
Thanks, Gilbert.
It's exactly the opposite of what Keely wanted, the long preamble. That's
Yes.
okay. Real quick on the other points. But thanks for the call, Gilbert. Glad that you're a 70-year Trojan fan. David Shaw has an ability to be outcoached for sure. He can be one of the most stubborn coaches around, and he outcoached Clay Helton for sure. But there's been plenty of times, you see the week before, like everyone thinks Tanner McKee's a better quarterback. Well, he starts Jack West. Like he's just done those things. He's done with KJ Costello and Keller Crit. Like he beat Oregon State by a point, like defiant that he wasn't going to put his back, the better quarterback in. Like he can be that way. But he wasn't that way on Saturday. Like he outcoached everything. But he's made some horrible decisions. He punts 4th and 1 at your, the opponent's 35-yard line. Like he's done some things. Like RJ Abadi will tell you, just like these Shawisms that are just insane. But he was aggressive. He took points off the board on Saturday. They kicked a field goal and they were winning. And David Shaw said when USC gets an offside penalty, and it wasn't like 4th and 1. It was like 4th and 2.5 or 3 or something. And he goes for the touchdown and gets it. Like that's like riverboat gambler stuff for David Shaw. That is not normally who he is. So, but yeah, David Shaw definitely outcoached him, but we've seen the opposite of that happen many times. As far as the transfer portal, that's a reality in college football right now. It's it is. If it's like this house of cards kind of thing, like we're saying, and we're hearing dissension, I think that's going to be an issue, which is part of the reason why if you're going to make a move, at least you're going to get people in the right direction. But if you make a move, you're probably going to lose a bunch of people anyway. Any kind of coaching change, we've seen coaches move. They bring people with them. Whatever. Like there's going to be attrition no matter what. That's the reality of college football right now. So if they kept Clay Helton, or he stays on the hot seat, or they fire him and bring in someone else, like there's going to be attrition on the roster.
It's very similar with the recruiting question. Like Keely asked earlier, do you try to make a move earlier because of the early signing period, whenever you make a move, if you make a move, there's going to be a complete flip of, what the new coaching staff is looking for, and, who they value. Some of the commits will drop off. There'll be other guys that'll, that USC maybe not be in the mix for right now that suddenly they are in the mix for, that have relationships with the new staff. So either way, there will be some attrition. There always is in college football. The transfer portal, though, is definitely looming, and, it could go, depending on how things are going and how the locker room is, if they can get things, figured out and actually become a well-meshed unit, then, if they don't, then there could be guys who are like, that I don't want to do this.
Yeah. I did like the blackout thing in the beginning. Was that cool?
It was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was
the thing.
neat.
It was a great environment to start. I mean, Jarrell Casey counting down to blackout the
That was pretty neat. Yeah.
It was really cool.
I give him credit for doing that. Yeah, that's some of the stuff like the administration's doing. But
special was the word that I was told today from someone in the locker room. It's special. They were like, there was a special environment. Never seen anything like it. They were so excited about it. And then to lay an egg on the field is just makes it even more disappointing, I think.
It makes it like, who cares about that?
But I think the environment, just real quick, I think the environment was great for the recruits there. They had a huge amount of recruits now, and a lot of them stayed the entire game, which – some
Probably
recruits come
wasn't
and check out things. So I don't know if that's a positive or negative, but, great atmosphere, and they could see it as, if this is the atmosphere when they're struggling, what could it be? You can sell it that way too, potentially. So
that's a good point.
I think it was a great environment, and credit to all the fans for creating that for the recruits that were there.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan, you always mention the Minty Te'o story that Gerard has with the snowball.
Right. Yeah. I mean, recruits can come to an environment and just be like, it'd be horrible, and they still want to go to the school. Like, Manti Te'o went to Notre Dame. It was snowing. They were getting beat by Navy. Students were throwing snowballs at the team, and he was on the sidelines seeing all this, and he went to Notre Dame still. Like, so they don't put too much stock in one game, but the environment, I think, definitely helped for recruiting.
Mm-hmm. All right, Gilbert, thanks for the call. Let's go to Stanley from West Hills. Stanley, I'm hoping you can prove me right with a brief call. You're live on Tunnel Vision. What's up?
Well, first of all, Ryan, you kept me up late last night with the emergency podcast, which was well done. I have a question for you. You mentioned that you could be friends with Clay Helton for life. I think I go back a long way with USC. We had coaches like Marv Gu and Coach O. Coach O, LSU, was taunting the UCLA fans because of his Trojan blood. Nick Saban would not put up with the mistakes that are being made by both the offense and defensive players. Do we have a coach on the sideline in that type of a person? And the other question is, the main one is, are there any player motivators who go out there and will work up the team and get them motivated to play? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, good stuff there. Yeah,
Thanks, Stanley.
Like, I like Ed Orgeron too. I could be friends with him. I would go have dinner with him. He's just a great dude. It's unfortunate the way things are going down there right now. But if 5 years from now, if Clay Helton's doing something else or whatever, and he's like, hey, you want to go dinner? I'll be like, yeah, that'd be great. I have no issues with any of that. I think he's a wonderful person. Motivators on the team, I don't think you have so the Marv Guse would be when he was there, he was the one that talked to Dr. Bartner and tried to make the band and the team come together. He was a leader. He's been around a while. A Vic So'oto can kind of maybe the most personality-wise, but he's so young. He's only been coaching for, I think it's his 5th year as an assistant coach. I don't think he's got the chops because he's got the experience behind him. I'm not sure who else on the team would be that way. I think he's the guy that could be the future, and maybe it's just because of the defensive line thing, the next Orgeron kind of guy, but I'm not sure who else on the staff would be there's not really that guy, I think.
Soto's probably the scariest dude, so if that's
Yes.
the way you're looking at it. There are other coaches that are noted for their personability.
Nyvar's great.
Yeah.
The whole defensive staff is just
Love them all. Yeah,
fired
they're great.
up.
Yeah.
But,
they should be fired up.
I'm not sure if
after
they're
watching
like that
tape.
rough, like the Marv Gu kind. I don't know if there's one of those. And those are rare anyway. I don't think you always have one.
And it's a little bit different college football nowadays
True.
Versus
you couldn't do some of the stuff, most of the stuff.
You don't have to fear that your head coach is going to attack a player on the field like Schembechler did. So, different mentalities for that. But yeah, I think Vic would probably be the scariest dude and the guy that you want to get on people that way. And Orlando gets on guys as well. When we hear Clay McGuire at practice getting on the offensive lineman, but you don't. It's not the same, I don't think, and I don't think that USC has that same type of personality like you would have in Orgeron.
But it's the same thing, and even with players-wise, I'm not sure who would stand out, but it's like you reflect the personality of your head coach, and that's just not Clay Helton.
Yeah.
A lot like that's it's going to disseminate down from him, and that's just there's no part of him that's like that.
Towards the end of the game, the last offensive drive, Kanai Malga was going down the defensive bench and saying, "Hey, come on, guys, let's get up and let's go support our teammates. Let's cheer on the offense." That's the type of leadership you're looking for. Chase Williams was there with him. He's been a guy that's very vocal.
Chase, Greg Johnson, Isaiah Pullamau.
Yeah.
You've seen those guys step up.
Yeah, so the question, though, it remains, and Keely and I have talked about this, it feels like for 5 or 6 years now, where's that person on the offensive side?
Yeah.
And we just discussed all the coaches, and we talked about all the defensive coaches, and I mentioned McGuire as really the only offensive coach. You don't feel like there's an offensive coach that really does that either. So that's a big question because you're losing half your football team.
Yeah.
If there's not someone that's stepping up on the offensive side to say their piece or whatever. Jalen McKenzie's been a pretty vocal guy.
Yeah, he's not even starting now though.
But that's the hard part.
Yeah.
You need a starter. You need the quarterback. You need that whoever it may be. You need the roughest, toughest guy on the offense. That person needs to be the person.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, let's go to our next caller. It's our buddy Dave from Iowa. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hey, Dave.
Awesome. Hey, guys. Dave from Iowa once again. Ryan, first off, I'd like to thank you for doing the emergency podcast at 2:30 in the morning and finishing at 3:30. However, I wasn't surprised about the messages, really. However, I was surprised, though, that you still think you're not a big fan of Cristobal after he beat Ohio State without KT and Justin Flo. So my question for you is, do you think that Clay Helton could do the same with USC, go into the horseshoe and beat Ohio State without, let's say, Jake Jackson and Kanai Malga? And then, Shotgun, in terms of Ryan's perspective on Stanford not being good, I have this comparison for you, and before I say it, I just want to say this is based off team production, not the financials. There are good teams, Oregon. There are bad teams, that's Stanford. Then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. Is that accurate, or do you think are we in the middle of the crap, or what do you think? Love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Dave.
Are we in the middle of the crowd?
I'm not sure.
Is this an Andy Dufresne question?
Yeah. I mean, outside, that's a big win for Mario Cristobal. They've been, winning the Pac-12. I mean, there's definitely a lot of questions on. He's an excellent recruiter. His name does come up for SEC jobs. I mean, he's a Miami guy and all that. But there's definitely been some questions. But I feel like he bumped up his personal stock by getting that win there. It's a big win. And no, USC would not go into the horseshoe and win with all their players, let alone two of their better ones out.
They did go to Washington and win when they were a top 5 team.
Yeah, but that's different. This is the horseshoe. Although
was Washington not a great atmosphere that night? You guys were there?
They were great.
I was not there. It's the
you weren't
last
there?
game I've missed. Yeah, it was the 2016
Oh, you
Washington
shouldn't have missed
game.
that one. It was great.
I know. Everyone tells me that. I know. Let's go to our next caller on the line.
What about your thing? Did you
We're
answer?
moving through, Ryan.
Okay, sorry.
It doesn't
okay.
even matter. I'm just going through. We got Chris
USC's team is still
from
better than
Anaheim.
Stanford.
Please
on
don't say
the
number
line.
1, number 2. Yeah.
Hello, you're live on
Hello.
television.
Hey, my name's Chris Leon. First-time caller, long-time listener. I wanted to know, why does the administration and the athletic directors keep Hilton when in 1979, when Robinson left, they got rid of Hackett, they got rid of Smith, they got rid of Toner? Why do they keep this guy? I don't understand.
Hey, Chris. So, I think just the short answer would be it starts at the top. You've had, since Mike Garrett was hired, was it 93, something like that, whatever, when they brought him along, they've just kept going with former football players as athletic directors, and nobody knew. Garrett had worked in the building at least, so he at least knew what was going on. Everyone since then was brought in and said, here's how we do things. So you had 30 years or something of just, this is what we do things, and no outside influence at all. And it just became this, there's this environment of just, here's how we do it. This is the way we do things. We don't care what, college football's changing, but we don't care. And then you had, Lynn Swann was, I go back and forth, Pat Hayden, Lynn Swann, who was worse. But when Lynn Swann gave a fully guaranteed extension to Clay Helton, and 8 months later he goes 5-7, and you are strapped with like a $40 million price tag on him. You can't fire. Everyone just assumed, okay, obviously you're going to fire him now. No one knew that not only did he get an extension, but he got a 40% raise, and it gets bumped up every year, and it's fully guaranteed. So Lynn Swann got completely fleeced, but you have to blame everybody that was around there, the president, the board of trustees. So the contract made it really difficult or nearly impossible to fire Clay Helton. So that's why we are where we are right now.
Nice. Well done. Brief question, brief answer. Sort of ish.
Sort of brief. But.
We'll go to our last caller in the queue for now, and then we'll jump into questions since we haven't even been able to jump into questions. It's Thomas from Malibu. If I can pull you up into the queue. Hello, you're live on television.
Hey, good evening and great show. Two quick things. First of all, we used to kind of joke about Mike Garrett, but we kind of chuckle now because we wish we had him back here, because I'll tell you, he wouldn't allow this nonsense. When he stated everyone wants to be a Trojan, never have been truer words spoken. My question to you is simple. Are we finally going to stop the nonsense about Graham Harrell being some kind of special coach? Listen, I watched the game. I've watched every game. It gets more and more nauseating by the evening. He is nothing special. He is easily figured out, and it's just a mockery to put this guy in the camera all the time as if he's some kind of Sengali. I mean, it's embarrassing. Want your thoughts on that? Fight on.
That's the first Sengali reference I think we've had on television, so thank you, Michael. And the Boo, in the Malibu. The Graham Harrell thing is very interesting to me because when everyone's talking about you got to replace Clay Helton, just make Graham Harrell the head coach. And he was up for some other head coaching jobs. But to me, the shine has come off of that somewhat, right? It's just not. I feel like, and we haven't done a food analogies. We kind of do this thing where
where's the we there? You haven't done a food analogy.
This is your brand, Ryan.
This is the thing. There's like I really felt when they hired him, and you saw that first year, like okay, they got a system and they're sticking to it. What I feel like is he was like an amazing like Italian chef, and there's this Italian restaurant that they hired a great Italian chef, and he left for someplace else. He went to Italy and goes cook over there. They're like, we need another good one. So they bring in Graham Harrell. He's like, oh, great. So we got another Italian chef. And then, but Graham got there and he started cooking Italian food. And he's like, I want a little more French influence in mine. He's like, I haven't really studied that, but I'm going to do some more French food. And now you've got this like fusion restaurant as opposed to you wanted Italian. And even though some USC fans didn't want like the air raid, you don't got it anymore. But that's what he knew. Like, and so he's kind of getting away from his, for me, it feels like, he's getting away from his core competencies of what he knew, and he's trying to do some other things. And it just doesn't seem to be working. I don't think he's a great French cook, and he's cooking a bunch of French food. So that's sort of my feeling, I think. So, yeah, like I don't feel like people are going to be lining up to hire him as a head coach anymore, and I don't feel like he would be the interim coach if USC fires Clay Helton in the middle of the season because his unit is not performing very well. They scored 23 points against San Jose State and, 20 points against Stanford in the majority of the game until scrub time.
I'm curious your thoughts on this, Ryan. How much did this offense or its scheme take a hit, given that we know that USC struggled at wide receiver recruiting, and now they're kind of relying on young new guys or transfers to jump in and make immediate impacts? I
mean, I'll give USC credit on they are not bringing in the Juju Smiths, the Robert Woods, like the Marquise, the guys that were like the local 4- and 5-star talent that they would automatically come to USC. That's not happening anymore. But the guys they're bringing in seem to be pretty good. Like if you get Joseph Manjack, like that guy looks really legit, So I feel like they're still doing okay, but they're not getting like there's like low hanging fruit in Southern California. Like 4- and 5-star receivers are falling off trees around here, and like you could just pick them up. And USC hasn't been doing that. I think the same thing with running back recruiting. They haven't done as well in that situation. And you would think if it's an air raid that you could get receivers to line up and come in, but something isn't quite right. And I feel like if you were just cooking the Italian food and you just ran the air raid, you ran what he would run before, then I think this would look different. It seems like you're trying to I'm going to branch out and do something else. And that's not really what you were brought in for. And if you were really good at it, that's fine. I'm not seeing them be really good at this, like running the 2 tight ends and all. It just doesn't seem like it's working like it would if they just ran 4 wideouts and just threw the ball all over the place.
Shotgun, your thoughts?
I mean, if the offense would get in sync, I think it would look different. But that's been the biggest issue, I think, even more so than the play calling, is just they're not on the same page. People aren't lined up right. You know, the quarterback and the receivers are not on the same page. You know, they're not being able to connect and have that, because Keaton Slovis threw a couple balls that are perfectly placed balls away from the defense. Receivers got to make those catches. They're off the fingertips on a couple of them. A couple of them, he's not making the right throw. So, you know, it's hard to judge this offense or judge Graham Harrell, I think, with the issues with the offense not being in sync as far as just his play calling and whatnot. But what is it going to take for that? Like, you should have, you know, you got to develop those other guys. You got to develop the Kyle Ford. No, Kyle Ford's been injured, but the John Jackson and those guys that they can step in when you lose Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyler Vaughn, rather than saying we got to bring in new guys to be able to fill those roles. And you're not rotating the guys. You're not being able to keep Gary Bryant on the field because of his health issues. There's some issues there. Maybe the offense will look better down towards the end of the season, and maybe then, you know, people will think better of Graham Harrell. But right now, I think the biggest issue is it's just not in sync.
Yeah.
They're running the ball. Oh, okay. They're taking advantage of those high safety looks and some of those different things, those drop coverages, you know, picking up some third downs with the run. But just in totality, it's not in sync.
No, I feel like you have a checklist. So, Keely, you got this thing here. Like, okay, well, we want to run for at least 140 yards. We want to do this. We want to get this guy the ball that many times. You're like, oh, look, like on paper, we're doing well. What do you say receivers got to do?
Catch the ball.
Catch the ball. What do you do as an offensive coordinator? Score points. You need points. Like, that's all that matters. Our friend Alicia Dertola at the Reign of Troy. Score freaking points. That's what you want, right? They talk about scoring 50. They can't score 30. Like, against not very good competition. So I don't care how many rushing yards you have. We were 4.5. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, put points on the board. If this was, you know, this is an interview situation, and I'm like, here's what I have for you. This is my company USC, and I have Drake London and Keaton Slovis and all these dudes, and you're the offensive coordinator coming into my office, and you're interviewing for me, and you're like, okay, here's what I have for you. What can you do? Well, I can have a scheme that I'm going to score 45 points a game. Boom. Tell me what it is, and you're hired. That's what you want. Like, just do your job and go score 45 points. Like, I don't care about anything else. I don't care how many rushing yards or how many penalties you have. Go score 45 points. They're not able to do that. So, yes, I think the shine has come off whatever this offense is. Little rant there. Sorry.
Yeah, that was. There you go. I mean, Shotgun, you dipped into this, but we have multiple questions. Steve wanted to know, what do you think of the soft zone busting up the air raid? Fabbank said, why can't Graham Harrell solve the 8-man coverage? It looked like USC was getting some good run yards. Why not run it until they have to stop doing drop 8?
It's a great question.
Because you know, when you're doing that, you know that they're not going to be committed to that. Like, that's just not. They want to, well, we got these runs, but now we got to do this. And it doesn't matter if the defense changed. It's not about taking what
they got to the 5-yard line and then threw 4 straight passes.
Yeah.
They got a pass interference in between there. And then eventually they got to the 2, I think it was, and they ran the ball and they got in on the 3rd down.
Yeah.
On the 5th play.
They did an under center, like 4th and 1 or whatever, sneak, like quarterback sneak.
Yeah. So there were some things in this game that
like
USC
one drive,
fans,
like Keely
USC fans have been clamoring for. We saw some more wide receiver rotation, which is a positive, I think. They went under center and got stuffed, and that was Drake London didn't have a very good block on that, so Keontae Ingram decided to try to cut back inside. You know, that was an interesting play call, you know, and it was interesting to me because I watched the hype video or the highlight video from USC beating Stanford, upsetting them, and the fans rushing the field. That was a play that they scored on in that game. So I thought it was interesting that they did a play from a couple years ago. Stanford stopped it this time, but they did some other things that the fans have been clamoring for, more rotation, different things like that, and they didn't all work. The quarterback sneak did work, but Keaton Slovis was like jostled around.
He ran like 4 times on that drive, which was very strange. You know, it was a really weird. Like they did that fake. And it was just like, okay.
And that's something with the drop 8 that he has to do. You know, when it's not 3rd down, if they're dropping everybody back and there's nothing open, take off, pick up 5 or 6 yards, and I think he did a good job of that.
Yeah. Truck Ranger said, why in garbage time did Slovis decide to start throwing to different receivers?
I think because there were more different receivers on the field. London came off, Kyle Ford came on. They rotated some different guys in there at that time, so I think that was part of it. There were some questions about why wasn't Jackson Dart in the game in the 4th quarter. And, at the time I'm thinking, when I'm watching it, like, why are you not getting the backups in?
I said the same thing.
Avoid the potential sack. But after thinking about it, the offense needed to stay out there. They're having so many issues with being in sync, and maybe those 2 drives at the end help lead into something, a positive week of practice, and that carries over to Washington State. But when you're having so many issues with your quarterback throwing to receivers and being on the same page and all those type things, I think the offense needed to be out there.
I think Stanford put in backups at that point.
I don't care. They need their confidence.
I feel like they're like, whoa, you only lost by 2 touchdowns instead of like, no, you were losing by more. This was not.
But still,
you should have put the backups in. It's important to play your backups. USC should be blowing teams out and putting in their backups.
Yes, but it's more important for the offense to get in sync and get some momentum going forward. So I think that was actually a smart move in hindsight, looking at it like, okay, we're really struggling. Let's try to figure this out. And maybe it was the up tempo. That's what that's what Clay Helton said today. He's like, oh, we went more up tempo, and maybe Graham will do that. And what did he say?
You're down by like 4 touchdowns.
He thought that Graham Harrell got in a good rhythm in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
little late there, but I think it was important for that first group to be out there and get a little confidence in a game where the entire team's confidence was shredded. I think it was positive for Keaton to throw a touchdown to Drake London and those type things to happen. So in hindsight, looking back, I think it was a good idea to leave the starters in, at least on the offensive side.
All right, I'm going to put us in rapid fire mode.
Okay.
Because it is 8:05. Ron says at the end of the game they put in Kyle Ford and he looked great. Why just at the end?
I like Kyle. He's my dude. I don't know. It's baffling to me. He seems healthy, and I'm not sure.
I talked to him on Tuesday. He said he was healthy.
Yeah, we put some more stuff in the war room. Keely did that, so make sure you check that out over at uscfootball.com.
Nice plug. Jester Smith said, will Washington State be able to handle USC's pass rush better than they did in 2020?
Washington State's a mess. See, that's the other issue. Like, I mean, they got players suing their head coach. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. Now, they lose to a Utah State team, kind of struggled with an FCS team yesterday for a little while. Then they, blew them out. But I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect from Washington State. Now, maybe they're going to get things righted. But, you have the governor of the state of Washington who, is unhappy with the head coach because he's not getting vaccinated. There's a lot of distractions up there. Maybe their last game fixed some of that, but I don't know what to expect for Washington State.
The difference with the pass rush, it's going to be difficult for USC to get sacks in this game as well because they're a team that tries to get the ball out super quick.
Yeah.
So USC didn't get a ton of sacks, if I remember correctly, against Washington State, but they really bothered Jayden DeLaura last year. And DeLaura came back in. He started the FCS against Portland State this past weekend, so I'm assuming he'll be the starter going forward.
Yeah, and he's an athletic dude. He can make some plays. So.
Kobe on Facebook wanted to know, when's the last time that USC signed a 5-star offensive lineman?
Austin Jackson, probably.
So Austin Jackson, and depending, I think in the composite he was a 4-star, so I don't remember correctly off the top of my head.
Chuma
was up there. EJ Price was up there. So,
Price transferred out.
But Austin Jackson, that class, you got him, you got AVT, Brett Nealon, Jalen McKenzie, and I'm forgetting one. There's a 5th one, but they got 5 guys in that class, Voorhees. So, that was their most recent really successful class.
Yeah.
A.K. Boone wanted to know, why didn't Corey Foreman play more?
Do you want to give
I don't know.
Clay Helton's answer? That he didn't. He was limited in practice last week because he's been dealing with a foot issue, and because of that, they basically limited what packages he was going to be in on, and that was just a pass rush package, and USC didn't put that package on the field very often.
Yeah,
and the first time that they put the pass rush package on, which I don't even know if it was the package or something else. Was it 3rd and 21 or something? They had 2 back-to-back tackles for losses, and they only had 10 guys on the field, so they had to call timeout. Well, then 2 plays later, they have to punt, and there's 2 number 1s on the field. That should have been a penalty. The Pac-12 refs, being Pac-12 refs, they missed that. But these are the small details. This is what I'm talking about. Like, people not knowing I need to be on the field. Like, I'm a part of a certain package. I need to be out there. And you have to call a timeout. You waste a timeout in the first half. Now, USC didn't need it because Stanford was the one driving at the very end. But if they did and they're missing a timeout, you're going to look back at that play and go, if they were just organized enough to get everybody on the field. And it's hard to do with 110 people that are 18 to 22, but you got to do it.
Job. Yeah, that's your job.
Yeah,
That's what you've been preparing the last
that's
9
what
months
championship caliber teams do.
Yeah.
The attention to detail is the most important thing in a Nick Saban organization. USC doesn't have that attention to detail.
No.
You saw it on defense there, special teams, and then I believe it was the next drive on offense was when they had a false start because Michael Trick lined up wrong and he was on the line. He needed to be off. Drake London's yelling at him. This is after Keaton Slovis on the very same play. Before that, they're showing him moving Keontae Ingram in the backfield, saying, no, you need to be over here. So there goes defense, special teams, offense.
Yeah, those are 3 things that aren't like how big or fast or strong you are. That's just where are you going to line up or what are you doing? Like, can you get on the field? And
attention to detail.
Yeah.
Chloe White wanted to know, with USC's loss to Stanford, does it now make the team's game against Washington State the most important game of the season for the team?
Got to go 1-0 every week, baby.
That's what I was about to say. You want the coach talk or?
No. No. Like, that doesn't. I mean, what makes it important is you got to beat Notre Dame and UCLA. Like, that's like, if you're not going to win the Pac-12, it's going to be about the rivalry games. But I mean, any game you lose is going to be, magnified and highlighted. But if you have to look at the rest of the schedule, I mean, it's going to be about the rivalry games, Notre Dame and UCLA. You can get some back. It's like when you're in the 3-point shooting contest, like that's the money ball. Like, you get 2 points for beating Notre Dame or 2 points for beating UCLA. But it's like cost you 2 points if you miss those shots.
Daniel wanted to know if you can make sense about the fact that Kansas State only allowed Stanford to score 7 points, and yet we saw what we did against USC.
I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but David Shaw said after the game that he felt like after they got that big run that it relaxed the players, and then they felt like from there they could go and dominate. They had the lead. They were able to play their style of offense. No, it doesn't make any sense.
And college football is not transitive property.
Yeah.
It's and the fact that Kansas State struggled with Southern Illinois the very next week. I mean, it's just weird, but sometimes things just work out. Like Stanford had a great game plan. Like David Shaw, I think, coached poorly against Kansas State. I mean, they were running clock. They were down the entire game, and they still used like the entire play clock the whole way. Like they were ahead, and they can do that against USC, and they only ran 54 plays or something. But you had the lead the whole time. They ran the same kind of stuff, but they were down, and they needed to press, and they weren't. And they had 2 quarterbacks, and I don't think he had a good game plan going in for Kansas State, but he had a great one for USC. So that's a week-to-week thing.
Andrew on YouTube want to know, which coaches left on the schedule do you think Clay Helton and staff can out-scheme?
I mean, they did it last year against Washington State, so we'll start there.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Washington State, again, tried to play man coverage. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 4 touchdowns in the first quarter.
Yeah, Utah did the same thing. I mean, but it's like a matchup thing. Like, I think David Shaw got completely outcoached one week and completely outcoached someone the next week. So I think it could just be, whatever. It's a week of preparation. Every game is like different. It's like a different living being, and it's going to develop different. It's going to evolve differently. So it's hard to say that right now, I would say.
Big T wanted to know, when will you know if Mike Bone and the athletic department admin got the message? I've never seen this much negative media and social media before.
I haven't talked to anyone over there yet. I mean, I've talked to like people that aren't the big decision makers, and they have levels of frustrations that are pretty high. I mean, I think those guys take a lot of pride in what they've done. I mean, they fixed things that we didn't know were broken. Like I think Keely talked about, they didn't have the right groundskeepers doing Howard Jones Field, just like the regular people that did cut the grass.
It was campus grass cutters, basically.
So if you cut the grass in front of the library, you cut the football grass. Like that's the kind of stuff that was just like, are you serious? Like that would never happen in Alabama. They've had to fix a lot of that stuff. And just even the lights. I don't agree with every decision. Like there's more DJ than band, which I'd like to see more band, but they've made the environment at the Coliseum better, and I'm sure they can tweak it. And I think the good thing is they're open to, like, if they come up with an idea and it doesn't work, they can back off of it. They're not married to it. So the problem is I feel like the administration has done a lot of good things, and they feel like, wow, we've put this on a tee for Clay Helton to knock it out of the park. And then when you swing and miss, I think it's, I'm not there, I'm not one of them, but you feel like it's kind of demoralizing. Like, man, I did all this work. Like, I set it up. Like, you led the horse to water, and the damn thing won't drink, And it's just like, so yeah, I feel like they take this stuff personally, and curious to see what their reaction is going to be to this.
I'm actually going to jump into callers. We've had a full queue all night
Again?
long, and I'm really sorry. We've actually had to turn away 42 people who've called.
Whoa.
Yeah, a lot of callers tonight.
Sorry,
so
people.
Sorry about that, but thanks to everyone who has held on. Let's go to the first caller in the queue. It's Hugh from Simi Valley. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Well, thank you for taking the call, and I appreciate what you guys do, because without you guys being there with our ability to vent, we're just going absolutely out of our mind. Can you
We're
tell
therapists.
me what you were told about the administration's reasons for deciding to kill tribute to Troy? I can't imagine a dumber decision. Well, yes, I can, but that leads the list right now. What was the reason for that?
Yeah, I talked to some people there a little bit. It's definitely about trying to, be competitive in the college football landscape. It's, you need to, they're trying to get a better environment in the Coliseum, and college football is changing. I think that was paraphrasing from the people that I've talked to. Talked to people at the band that weren't really happy about it. It was weird because they would play like kind of DJ music, and I'm a traditionalist. I like when they play Another One Bites the Dust after a sack, or and I think that's just part of the thing. I remember going to like Arizona State games 10, 15 years ago, and I was like, wow, this feels like an NFL stadium where like they're always playing music, and USC games are always playing the band stuff. So I think that's one of those things they can probably tweak. The Tribute to Troy thing is like, that's a tradition that's like, David Shaw was playing that at their practices because you're going to hear it so often, and they played it sort of a weird time. I think because if you force like a second or third down or fourth down, they would play Tribute to Troy, but then they did some kind of DJ music. But then like Stanford got a first down and they played Tribute to Troy because that was like a time that the DJ wasn't going to play, and something wasn't quite right there. And I agree with you. I like the Tribute to Troy stuff, but we'll see. I think they're going to still tweak some stuff, but a lot of the changes I think were cool. Like definitely the night, the blackout kind of thing was neat.
Mm-hmm.
I'll play devil's advocate and say the DJ definitely had the student section
They were
hyped
fired
up
up
before. They all came early. They were, they were rowdy. I don't know what happens during the game. Keely can attest that I don't ever
He
pay
doesn't
attention.
hear anything. It's so weird.
He's zoned in on taking his pictures and
I
stuff.
guess.
I don't
There
ever
was.
notice.
I mean, the student environment, like sometimes it's pretty, it's kind of chill. Like the DJ gets. I'm not a huge DJ guy, but it's definitely firing up the students. And I think they're going to try to figure that out. Like, hey, we're going to do a little bit more of this, but we don't want to ruin the band. And I don't think they want to ruin band traditions. But I don't think they want to.
No.
So I feel like that. They'll still figure this out and see what's going to work best.
I think they're trying to figure out the balance and try to also have a modern stadium environment, and so they're trying to figure it out. So.
Yeah.
Getting the student section involved is really big
Yeah.
because they're the rowdiest, they're the noisiest, and it's pretty expansive when they give them enough room. So
Well, they also have that grad package. Is if you were a 2020 grad, you can also have
nice.
a student section
Nice.
ticket.
Forgot about that.
So that's why it's like
It's
expanded.
it's as good of a student section as I've seen in a long time. So
Yeah.
that's credit there because it's better.
Yeah. Facebook and YouTube, if you want to have some final rapid fire questions after I'm done getting through some callers, be sure to do so right now.
we've gotten so many questions today. I've got 7 pages already of questions. So
Yeah.
well, that's why I'm not looking at the camera, guys, for the most part. I'm trying to pull all
Shotgun's
these questions
helping
in
me
for
out.
you.
We're never going to get to those.
Yeah.
There's
Alrighty.
certain ones. They're bolded for her
Hey,
to
we
to
have
know.
a whole system, Ryan. Let's go to Sean from Fullerton. Hello, you're live on television.
Howdy. Well, listen, I've been able to hear while I'm waiting, but I think the decision makers do know. Everybody knows at this point. Everybody gets it. The question I have for you, is it just that they announced that Clay's not coming back? Is that the magic? Is that what makes a difference? And if so, A, do you really need an interim coach? If everybody knows Clay's not coming back, what difference does it make if he stays? You're not going to retool the offense. You don't have the ability to put in a new offense in the middle of the season. You're not going to get rid of Orlando and his guys. So do you put a Sean Snyder as the temp coach and just allow him to roll out the season, or do you just let him stick around, just make the announcement so everybody knows and you can start your search? And kind of part two, because we've been around our fan base too long, does anyone have the patience to actually wait unless we're hiring somebody currently not employed? That most of these guys aren't available to start taking these calls that we would want until probably December or late December. And if by chance they're NFL guys and they're any good, they're not available until January. So, where do you go once you make the announcement, even if you make it early?
I mean, I think it's an interesting
Good
point.
question, Sean.
Yeah, I like it. As far as Clay's been around a long time. If you're like, hey, and Clay is the kind of person that would do that. I think there's coaches that would be like, I'm out. And I think Clay would coach out.
Like Ed Orgeron?
Yeah. I think, and he was done dirty if you read the book, but
that's exactly what happened.
Right. I don't think this would be doing Clay dirty. Like he's had many, many chances, but I think Clay would be the kind of person to be like, you know what? I want to be the head coach. I don't agree with your decision, but I will coach out the rest of the year, and I'm going to like fight my hardest. I think he would definitely be open to doing that. So that's an interesting point.
Yeah, you could do that, but if you want to try to turn the season around, you make the change, you cut off the head of the snake, and then you try to put a replacement in there and try to change the environment, and hopefully that someone as an interim changes. Sees some issues and makes some changes. That's what you would hope for, and you hope that things change like it did for Ed Orgeron that season after they fired Lane Kiffin. It's like he made some changes, and those changes were really well accepted by the players. They played for him. That's what you would hope for in making someone, if you make the decision early. Like just putting out a press release and saying, no, we're not going to do that. That doesn't really make so much sense to me.
But the early thing, too, is you do get started on the process. Like if you wanted a Luke Fickell or you wanted a Matt Campbell or whatever it is, like you can start the agent process then and be like, okay, see who's available.
Yeah, you don't have to actually wait until December to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
There's all the back channel stuff happening.
But if you know you're making a change, the earlier you do it, the better chance you have of getting somebody that you want.
They might be making back channel talks right now.
Yeah, they could have been for the last 2 years for all we know.
And also from the point of view of the new admin, firing early would set the tone as to we understand what the fans want. We understand we're not tone deaf. We know that we're going to do things differently rather than, it's not a guarantee that everyone knows, oh, he'll be fired. How many times have we talked about this? How many seasons have we talked about this? And then he's come back, So I think that would be from the new admin's perspective, you'd want to set the tone.
You want like some flag waving thing. You want you want to make people happy. Like USA, you just go up there like, come on, America. Yeah, everyone goes crazy. Like, yeah, you say we're firing Clay Helton, people are going to go bananas. Like they will.
What analogy was that?
Just like if you're like speaking about,
Keely just made Clay Helton sound like the boogeyman, and you didn't even notice. She's like, he just keeps coming back, like it's like Jason in the movie.
I didn't mean it like that. I just meant in the sense that
it is like Friday the 13th Part 8.
Yeah,
like
how is he
Jason,
still alive? This doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I didn't mean it like that. I was just saying. Okay, let's go
it's
to our
Teflon or whatever. We put all the different analogies people say.
Our final caller in the queue. It's Matt from Kentucky.
Ooh, Kentucky.
Hello, you're live on television.
Hey guys, I'm actually originally from Sacramento. My grandfather was an All-American at SC, won a national championship, so
awesome.
I'm true, fight on.
Very cool.
I absolutely do believe that this week is the most important game because I'm curious to your guys' thoughts on two things. One, I thought Keenan Slovis has played. He needs to step up as a leader on the field. He's just going through the motions, and I think the quarterback is the one that could change it. Two, I think this team responds to Helton this week. If they come out PO'd and they have some pride, I think this is the most, because it's going to show you because I thought they kind of quit. I really did. The effort was, and to me, lastly, I think, and Urban Meyer said this a couple years ago, and I think Oregon's done a good job, but I think it's where the Pac-10 is, and I'm out in SEC land. The biggest difference right now, and USC used to never be pushed around. My grandfather was a lineman. Our linemen right now, physicality, we don't match up. And a couple years ago when Ronald Jones was there and we blew Stanford right off the field, is because our offensive line basically put all their defensive line on the bus. And I feel like it's been a long time since since Carroll was here, that we've pushed people around on both lines, both offense and defense. And appreciate you guys. I know we're all frustrated, but we fight on, and that's why we're gonna be on top soon. Take care.
Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, very cool, Matt. So, few things could happen. USA goes to Washington State. They lose. Blowout by a point, whatever. It becomes, that's just another nail, right? So, that's important. If USC wins like a clunker and they're like, they beat them by 6, like how important is the game? They blow them out, maybe if it's important. It's like, okay, USC's back. But, Washington State already lost to Utah State on that field. So, I don't know, outside of getting another loss that's sort of like, that's a result I think that would end up being important. I don't think a win in Pullman is going to end up being all that important. I don't know.
Shotgun?
I would agree with that. what you would want to see is that the team comes out and plays really crisp. And, if the ball bounces the wrong way, you end up winning by 10 or 15 instead of it being a true blowout. I think that's still okay, but just need to see the team playing crisp. That's something we haven't seen.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to our final rapid fire questions for the night. Thanks for everyone who's been engaging in the show. We appreciate you guys.
We had like 560 people live on
people are watching, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, hit the like button, people. Thank you.
Yeah, hit the like button, please. Big T said, from everything we've heard from you guys and others, John Jackson III should be getting more run. Where is he?
Standing on the sideline with the other receivers that aren't getting in. And someone later said that if I said that there was more rotation, there was, and said if that's more rotation, then the only reason Kyle Ford got in was because London. Well, Gary Bryant got in. There was more guys moving in and out of the game. Now, could they expand that? Yes, they still could. Do they need to? I think it was better than last week. So the rotation was better than last week. Now we'll see if they continue that or what kind of changes. But John Jackson is a guy who has proven himself in camp and in practice. So I don't know why he doesn't get an opportunity to prove himself in the game. I think Kyle Ford got that opportunity, and look what he did.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the thing those guys want. Like, just give me a chance to prove myself. And if I can't do it in the game, then maybe I understand you putting me on the bench. But if you don't give me a chance, how do you?
I want to see what the targets are.
Well, the interesting thing too, Shotgun, is you talked to Seth Dagey about how John Jackson in particular is just a very consistent option, and consistency has been an issue we've seen this year so far with the wide receivers. Why not at least give him a chance?
Great point. I mean, he's the guy that exactly what he's going to do, so you don't have to worry about him. He's going to line up right every time. He's going to run the right route every time, so you don't have to have any of those issues that you really were having some issues with, especially this game, a little bit the first game. So it seems like that would be a guy like when we need to calm things down. I know they're still looking for the explosive plays, but when we need to calm things down and, get centered, then put him in there, to pick up a first down or whatever. And then if you need to go and you want to try to get the explosive, then you sub somebody else in, later in the drive or something. I don't know. It seems like a very good option that has not been utilized.
Yeah, they had 6 receivers targeted. So, I mean, they got more guys involved than the first game for sure.
Yeah, there was only 2 targets outside of London and Washington to wide receivers the first game.
Yeah.
And they also rotated the tight ends a little bit more this game, I thought, too.
Lamont wanted to know what was going on with the linebackers last night. I don't remember any linebacker making a play.
That's 2 games in a row.
Kanai Malga had one big hit in the first quarter on Love. Who's their running back? Sorry, Jones.
Jones, yeah.
Bryce Love reference?
I was thinking Austin Love. I had the first name right. But, yeah, that seemed about it. I mean, Kanai had some glorious, beautiful flow going last night with his hair down at the back, but there wasn't a lot of playmaking being made by the linebackers. And they used some different guys. Tuasivi Nomura was in for one package where they had 6 D linemen or outside linebackers, 2 and 2 middle linebackers, and then like Chris Thompson was on the field at the same time. That was their big package for the heavy stuff that Stanford was running. So they mixed some guys in there, but there was no one consistently making plays. And I don't know what the tackles looked like, but where's the linebacker at in that group?
Like Thule led the team in tackles. Greg Johnson, Isaac, yeah. So
where's Tuasivi had 4.
Yeah, he was the highest,
and he might have had one of those on special teams too.
Had 4. Goforth had 4. Yeah, it did. Raymond Scott only had one assist. That's I don't know how many plays he did, but
Raymond Scott was in and out though. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It looked like he was hurt, but apparently he was fine.
That's just different packages that they had for this game. So,
Adam said, "At what point do we have an honest conversation about Keaton Slovis not developing as we thought?"
It's not even just, the question's always been around USC is like, it's not just not developing, but regressing. And, I think that's a legitimate, what's going on? Was it the offense? Was it him? Was it I don't know. But he's, I think he still looks like a good quarterback, but something overall in the offense, I'm not saying it's slow. I don't think if you put in Jackson Dart, the offense is now clicking. I feel like this is more of a problem with the offense than with who the quarterback is. And maybe someone like Dart, maybe someone that's athletic that makes plays. You remember Sam Darnold when he was in a gumbo-y offense that didn't have any kind of rhythm to it. He just made plays on his own. If you have a quarterback that can do that, then maybe the offense would work better. But I'm not putting a lot of this on Keaton's shoulders, I guess, but
he's having some trust issues. I think that's why it's taking him a little bit of time to progress through his reads, because he's looking for London because that's the guy he trusts, and the other guys not so much. So I think that's part of it. But again, something the offense needs to get ironed out. They got to figure it out.
Stephen wanted to know, in the loud media landscape that we live in, do you think the noise from Keyshawn, LA Times, Arash Markazi, and others will put pressure on Mike Bone?
I mean, it all does. I mean, if you read, Bill Plaschke just basically just thrashed Helton in his story. But, everyone, there was like 3 articles in the LA Times about it. One about, what did Matt Leinart say? What did Keyshawn Johnson say? I got texts from former USC greats, there was definitely pressure, and I think you can hear that. You're in the administration, you hear it, and, some of the stuff you can like sort of write off or whatever. It's like, the pandemic year and all this stuff. It's loud and clear now. And yeah, I don't think it's anything that the administration can ignore. I'm not saying that they're going to hey, Keyshawn Johnson said we got to make a move. That's what we're going to do. But it's sort of just, you're just throwing stuff onto the pile, I guess, at this point. There's a lot of evidence there.
Mark Watkins wanted to know, they squib kicked on the opening kickoff, costing them a big return and their kicker. After having 6 touchbacks on 7 kickoffs last week, what was the logic behind that?
I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was intentionally a squib kick. I think it was Parker didn't kick it right.
Yeah.
Didn't get a good kick in. So
I'm a big Sean Snyder guy, which sort of lends me to believe there's bigger issues going on around USC, because I think he's a really good special teams coach. I'm giving them below average grades for 2 weeks in a row now with little things. They weren't giving up, the huge plays, but they give up 4 points by going offsides on a field goal. That's it. Don't go offsides on a field goal.
It wasn't even going off offsides. It was lining up.
Lining up offsides. So there's been, fair catch at the 5. There's been punt return issues.
Returning from the 1 yard line.
Yeah, so
twice in a row.
Things are and I think Sean Snyder's a really good coach, but is there a bigger problem around him that is going? I don't know, but I'm giving them below average grades 2 weeks in a row, and I didn't expect to do that after they played pretty well last year under him.
And a partially blocked punt.
Yeah.
Kevin wanted to know on YouTube, if USC beats Oregon and UCLA, will this buy Helton more time?
They've got to get to UCLA and Oregon first.
They don't even play Oregon.
They don't play Oregon.
Well, I think he's assuming the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, if Clay Helton goes 11-1 and wins the Pac-12, I think, but that from what we saw Saturday, that is not going to happen.
The team that played on Saturday will not go 11-1.
Right.
Will there be a different team that comes out on Saturday this week? We'll see.
There would be some wholesale, major changes and buy-in and all of that going on. If that happens on the team, and they run the table, and they beat Utah and Arizona State on the road, and an improved UCLA team, and then Oregon in the championship game. Yeah, I don't think Clay Helton's going to go anywhere. But, outside of that, I don't think they have a choice but to get rid of him.
And if they did that, I think that would be a good coaching job. If they turn it around from what we saw on Saturday to go 11-1,
we just haven't seen him do that. We've seen them stick to your guns. This is one of those things where you're okay, we got to start over. We were down at the Cotton Bowl when USC played Ohio State. And I remember Keely and Dan were just on the sidelines going look at that defensive line for Ohio State. And a bunch of those dudes won the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
And they just got pushed around. And that score could have been way worse. And you're okay, well, you got to make a change on the offensive line, right? And Clay Helton didn't. And stuck with Neil Callaway. And you're okay, so that just kind of puts you back. So we haven't seen... And Clay Helton was asked in the press conference yesterday about making changes, and he's it's game 2, So what that tells me is they're not going in and just ripping up the game plan and going, all right, here's what we're going to do now. We're doing this different. They're going to do the same stuff. So they'll play good some weeks and get some good wins, and they're going to lose some other games. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
We had a question on Facebook wondering if you were the coaches, would you consider rotating more at cornerback?
I don't know.
I don't think Jaden Williams was even available for this game, so that was one option. Josh Jackson, he gave up the touch. He was the one that lined up offsides and then gave up the touchdown. So
And he came in when Chris Steele messed up, right? So
when Chris Steele got the penalty,
Yeah.
and then Steele came in later in that drive when Isaac Taylor-Stewart got the penalty, and then Josh Jackson was the third guy, so he needed to get a penalty, right? I mean, we
I
can't.
think ITS's helmet came off too, and that's when Steele came back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
On-
I mean,
on the
I don't
play
think
where
they
you
need
got
to
a
do
penalty.
more. I think that's good. Like if you get something like that, take them off the field. I think they did that, but the people that came in kind of screwed up too.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're putting in a true freshman this year, right, or Prophet Brown, there's not a ton of options there at the cornerback position that are healthy.
Yeah, but I don't mind playing those guys. But that's like then you get into a red shirt thing and everything too. So
The thing is that Chris Steele and Isaac Taylor-Stewart are perfectly capable. They just need to play better.
Yeah.
They didn't play good this game. They need to play better.
Eric said, Trojan fan here in North Georgia. Love the show. After Saturday night, you guys are the therapy we long-suffering Trojan fans need. Any chance Keely Slovis gets benched if offensive woes continue?
no,
I don't know.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Graham Harrell loves him some Keaton Slovis. Like they are buds. I don't think that's changing.
We've seen it before, though. That's been the move under Clay Helton. It's happened twice now.
What was the other time? Sam Darnold. Who was the other one?
Well, I guess I feel like JT Daniels kind of saw the writing on the wall, but
Oh yeah, that was injury, but
sure.
I mean, I feel like no. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Unless he's hurt, he's not getting benched. But I don't know if you guys can definitely have a different opinion. But
I think
Oh, can we?
sure, you're allowed.
I think the bigger issue that I have is that I feel like fans automatically want to go to the quarterback change to just be a Band-Aid. And if that's something that you keep having to say in the Clay Helton era, it's like there's bigger issues than just the quarterback, you know?
Yeah, I think that's just one of those things. Where it's like you're at the restaurant and like the meal is terrible. You're like, let's get different napkins. Like, no, like that. I don't think that's going to fix things. Like, yeah, maybe the napkins work great. I don't think this is a Keaton Slovis problem. I don't think Jackson Dart's going to fix this.
I think Keaton Slovis is their best option.
Yeah.
You know, when Max Brown was struggling, you could look at it and be like, Sam Darnold might be a better option. I don't think Jackson Dart's that answer. Not right now in his career. You know, there's mistakes that he has made at times in fall camp that you wouldn't want to see in a game.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Let's wrap this one up. It's 8:37. Thank you to everyone who watched and tuned in, called, everything. We appreciate you guys. Final thoughts, guys. We'll be back on Thursday to preview USC's matchup against Wazoo. Shock and I will be traveling to Pullman, so look out for our coverage there. But final thoughts, guys, before we wrap this one up.
Well, first, thanks everyone. It's been a crazy 24 hours. Like got to bed at 4:30 in the morning, which normally like Shotgun does every day, but that's not normally me.
I ate dinner at 4:30 last night.
So I mean, it was fun. It's fun to kind of do the emergency podcast just in my home office, do all that stuff. That was cool. But I was really looking forward to this. I was exhausted. I did like a bike ride like charity thing today, and I was just like wiped out. But I was like, once this came, I had like Diet Coke. I'm fired up. So thank you. I'm glad that we got a whole bunch of people in here. You guys have been. I mean, this makes I love doing what I do. I'm thankful and grateful that I get to work in college football and cover a team but having the people that we have, the callers and the
interacting with you
it's
guys.
so it just makes it so much cooler. So we love that you're a part of it, and thank you guys all for being there. I know it's been crazy. You've always been happy, but the fact that you keep coming back, I do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Shotty, final thoughts. Take us out.
I want to end on a positive note.
That was positive.
Yeah, I'm from the game.
Okay.
There were some small positive things. Darwin Barlow getting in and scoring a touchdown.
Like
Michael
that.
Trigg getting his first catch. I thought the atmosphere there, it was my first game back because I've been stuck in quarantine and the first game back with the fans in 2 years now basically.
Yeah.
So it was a great atmosphere. I was so amped up at the beginning of the game. There was a ton of recruits there, so USC's doing their part on that side. Can they fix the stuff on the field stuff? That's going to be the big question. Hopefully they can, because even though we love all these high numbers that we get when these shows, because someone asked, is this the most viewers we've had? And I think we had more after the UCLA loss.
We had the most
2019.
when Bone announced in 2019
But
that
Clay was coming back.
returning.
We had like over
Yeah.
1,000 people, I think, online or something crazy.
We had like 100 callers at the same time. It was so weird.
So we love those high numbers, but we would much rather see a well-oiled product. It's
Yeah.
just more fun to watch. It's more fun to cover when teams are competing at their highest, and that's what this team is not doing right now. So hopefully they can turn things around there. But did want to point out that the atmosphere was great. The fans were great. It was great. Everyone that was shouting out to Keely and I from the stands. Love hearing from you guys.
Yeah.
So much fun. And
Solomon Tuliaupupu also got in.
yeah, that was the other one I wanted to point out.
Oh, I forgot. Okay.
So
yeah.
he got in at the very end. And so him and Trig, first completion. Barlow getting in the first time. So a couple guys that could be big-time contributors for USC in the future getting their first opportunities.
Yeah. He didn't get a stat or anything, but cool for him.
He was in on punt, I think, or something.
Oh, okay.
Punt
Yeah.
return or something.
But
Nice.
good to see, nonetheless.
Yeah. Huge.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for this week's Sunday night show. That's Ryan, that's Shaka, and I'm Keely. We'll be back on Thursday to preview USC's matchup against Wazoo. See you next time.